What you do in your father's garage?
Tune-ups, oil changes, brake relining, engine rebuilds, rebuilt some trannies, rear end.
Okay. But
Marisa Tomei gained critical praise and a strong fan following after her breakthrough performance in My Cousin Vinny. But even with her indisputable charm and brilliance, Tomei's career hasn't always been easy. Marisa has encountered a lot of controversy, ranging from whispers about her Oscar victory to unexpected turns in her personal life. However, fans and industry insiders were shocked to learn that she was abruptly deprived of one thing. What was stolen from her, and how did that affect her professional life? Stay tuned as we reveal the startling truth about Marisa Tomei's journey. The random meeting that inspired the movie. It's not amazing that the film's author, Dale Launer, got the movie concept from a real chance encounter. Launer met a man who had passed the bar exam and was awaiting the results early in the 1970s. The prospective attorney told Launer that he would simply retake the exam till he passed when she questioned what had happened if he failed. The man said 13 times in response to his question about how often someone had failed the bar exam before passing it. He wondered, what if you've been charged with a crime and it seems like you have the worst attorney in the nation on your side? He said to Abnormal Use. Men from Joe Pesci's neighborhood inspired Vinny. Pesci was unquestionably the ideal performer for the role of Vinny. He expertly constructed Vinny to be both ridiculous and approachable. So how did he inhabit the role with such ease? Pesci's real-life childhood friends inspired Vinny. A native of New Jersey, Pesci acknowledges that characters similar to Vinny were prevalent in his area. As a result, he created Vinny by fusing the characteristics of people he knew with recollections of his early years. The studio wanted to cut Mona Lisa Vito. It's challenging to envision My Cousin Vinny without Vinny's outspoken, jobless girlfriend, Mona Lisa Vito, played by Marisa Tomei, a car expert. In actuality, though, the studio intended to remove Mona Lisa from the story. Screenwriter Dale Launer reluctantly inserted a sequence in which the character bemoaned her lack of attention to retain the character. He wished to avoid the audience's perception of Mona Lisa as the conventional controlling girlfriend. You frequently watch films in which a man is driven to achieve a goal, and while you follow him, his mother, wife, or lover feels abandoned. She also grumbles, and I detest this. Those scenes are just boring to watch. You wish to skip ahead. Horrible, he said to Abnormal Muse. The biological clock scene by Marisa Tomei wasn't in the original draft. Speaking about trimming Tomei's Mona Lisa, Launer's favorite section in the script was the one that was added, the biological clock scene. In the famous moment, Mona Lisa gripes to Vinny about her biological clock is ticking and that she hasn't received a marriage proposal yet. Vinny vents to her and complains about everything, finally saying she's sorry for bringing it up, stating maybe it was a bad time to bring it up. Robert De Niro was the first choice for Vinny. Although it's challenging to picture anybody playing Vinny Gambini, screenwriter Dale Launer didn't initially consider Joe Pesci for the part. He believed that Robert De Niro would be a fantastic Vinny. Though De Niro was well known for his serious parts at the time, the studio president felt he was not funny. Even worse, Launer disclosed in an interview with Writer Unboxed that the president appeared uncomfortable and embarrassed when he proposed De Niro for the part. They had no idea, though, that years later, De Niro would go on to play several humorous parts, including those in the Meet the Parents series. Launer took a road trip to the South for research. Screenwriter Dale Launer traveled to the South to study Southern culture and customs to authentically depict the characters in the movie. His website's bio states that he picked up a car in New Orleans, traveled across Mississippi, crossed into Alabama, and then headed down to the Gulf Coast. Some of the journey's memorable moments, which found their way into the screenplay, include his car getting mired in the mud, the fact that grits were served at every eatery, and the sound of screeching owls. The casting of Marisa Tomei was a risk for the studio. Tomei has been well known since playing Mona Lisa Vito. However, the production company was concerned that Tomei lacked enough experience when the movie was released in the early 1990s because she hadn't performed in many major motion pictures. However, director Jonathan Lynn fell in love with her after witnessing her performance on the set of the 1991 comedy Oscar, describing her as talented and funny. So he cast her, willing to take a chance. As Lynn stated in the DVD commentary for the movie, he knew he'd made the right decision as soon as they shot the first scene in which Mona Lisa tells Pesci, "Oh yeah, you blend," when Vinny and Mona Lisa arrive in Alabama. Mona Lisa's expert testimony wasn't accurate. Tomei's statement about Mona Lisa Vito was one of the most unforgettable scenes in the movie. Vinny's first judicial triumph is primarily attributed to Mona Lisa, whose astounding automotive knowledge astounds both the jury and the judge. Even though Tomei steals the show in this scene, her testimony turns out to be slightly off. There were 3 cars with independent rear suspension and positraction in the 1960s, not only the 2 Mona Lisa depicts. Ironically, screenwriter Dale Launer learned about this via a friend from high school who attended the movie's premiere. Oh no! A real-life conversation inspired the famous Utes scene. It turns out that a real-life chat between Joe Pesci and director Jonathan Lynn inspired one of the movie's most frequently referenced passages. Utes made an appearance in the scene where Vinny and Judge Haller discuss 2 Utes, and during the film's preparation, Pesci mentioned 2 Utes who were on trial in his heavy New Jersey accent. Lynn answered, "What?" in response. Pesci said, "What?" and that's how the sequence played out in the movie. Vinny was supposed to be dyslexic. Naturally, we were left wondering how someone could take so many attempts to pass the bar test until Vinny revealed that he had to take it 6 times before passing. However, we found the answer to this question in the script's final draft. Initially, Launer decided to remove Vinny's dyslexia from the final script because Pesci didn't know how to portray it, which he wasn't happy about because it made Vinny seem not so bright. Vinny would have said, "I'm a little dyslexic," when asked why it took him 6 tries to pass the bar. You have no idea why it took him so long to pass the bar. Then, all of a sudden, he begins to act intelligent. He told Abnormal Muse, "What you have to do is assume that the law is just boring and complicated and he's a smart guy." Tomei heard about her Oscar nomination unexpectedly. Marisa Tomei undoubtedly demonstrated why she was the ideal actor to play Mona Lisa Vito and even won an Oscar. The actress was dozing off on her friend's couch when she learned she was an Oscar nominee. This friend was quite pregnant and almost due. Her pals began yelling while they watched TV in the room. Tomei assumed, understandably, that her buddy had given birth. She told David Letterman in 1993, "They woke me up with shouts from the other room. I was unsure whether she was about to go into labor." The Oscar conspiracy of Tomei. Tomei not only received an Oscar nomination, but she also took home the Best Supporting Actress prize. However, soon after Tomei's victory, speculations were going around that she had won accidentally because presenter Jack Palance misread Tomei's name while under alcohol. While it would make a compelling narrative, this is quite unlikely because the Academy has 2 representatives waiting off stage who could step in and read the right name if it happened. This has only happened once in history. In 2017, Faye Dunaway declared that La La Land was the winner of Best Picture instead of Moonlight after Warren Beatty received the erroneous card. Clocks jump in time. The following error will require close inspection to be noticed. Judge Haller grants Vinny a stay of execution unless he can win the case in the next 90 minutes in response to his plea for a postponement so he can review Wilbur's testimony. This implies that it's 1:30. However, the clock outside Dave's barbecue displays 12:55 right after the break, and a few minutes later it reads 4:25. Pesci's Oscar from Goodfellas almost made a cameo. While discussing the Oscars, Pesci's performance in My Cousin Vinny earned him an Oscar from a previous role, which we believe was a complete oversight. Nevertheless, he wasn't nominated for an Academy Award for it. The evening before filming the sequence in which he's arrested for defamation, Pesci was collecting his Oscar for his role in Goodfellas. The Oscar was in Pesci's arms on the first take of filming because he'd flown in direct from Los Angeles, indicating that the trophy might have made an appearance in the movie. Time-wise, this doesn't work up, and Vinny would have been late for the trial. Number 3 in the list of 25 greatest legal movies. My Cousin Vinny is regarded by judges and attorneys as one of the most realistic legal dramas ever produced, demonstrating Lynn's commitment to accurately portraying the law. The film is number 3 on the American Bar Association's 25 greatest legal films list. Professor Alberto Bernabe of the John Marshall Law School asserts that Pesci's Vinny possesses several skills that aren't even covered in law school. Vinny, according to him, is very good at the things we don't teach in law school, but terrible at the things we do. Mona Lisa's character is based on Jersey girls in France. Not just Vinny's character was modeled after actual individuals. Although Mona Lisa is an excellent example of the Jersey girl cliché perpetuated by the media, screenwriter Dale Launer had never really met anyone from New Jersey until he went on a backpacking trip in France and encountered a group of ladies from the state. He was amazed that they had kept their hair styled and cosmetics applied while swimming. This incident stayed with him, and the endearing Mona Lisa was inspired by it. The chessboard getting knocked over was accidental. Unplanned occurrences frequently provide hilarious moments, and in My Cousin Vinny, some of the most memorable scenes were the ones that just so happened to happen. During a sequence in which Joe Pesci's character, Vinny, attempts to reveal his true identity to Fred Gwynn's character, Judge Haller, he accidentally topples the chessboard the judge was using. Pesci accidentally knocked over the chessboard, but the director, Jonathan Lynn, found it so genuine and humorous that he included it in the movie. Screech Owl was a real owl. Vinny and Mona Lisa wake up to screeching owls, steam whistles, and raucous piglets every morning. According to director Jonathan Lynn, the screaming owl in the woods was a real owl that had only recently received little training, so it wouldn't be alarmed when Vinny fired the rifle. By offering the owl chunks of beef, the crew managed to get it to open its jaws, and then in post-production, they artificially caused the screeches. The owl's response, though, was recorded in a single take. Lynn says, "We got fortunate with the screech owl" in the DVD commentary for the movie. Danny DeVito and Jim Belushi were also considered for Vinny. Before Pesci was cast in the part, other actors like Danny DeVito and Jim Belushi were also considered for the role of Vinny, aside from Robert De Niro. Launer turned down DeVito because he didn't look menacing at 5 feet and under, and Vinny was supposed to be a bad guy for the mob. However, Danny was given the script by the studio executives after Launer turned down DeVito for the part, and he eventually dropped out after growing interested in it. Jim Belushi was then offered the script, but he declined, something he subsequently regretted on the Dan Le Batard radio program. Only Mrs. Riley part was ad-libbed by Joe Pesci. One of Vinny's greatest assets as an attorney is his ability to maintain his charm even during a direct cross-examination of the witnesses, eventually demonstrating the unreliability of their testimony. This is evident when he confronts the endearing Mrs. Riley, who happens to be wearing glasses, about her account of seeing the defendants in Sac-O-Suds. Vinny painfully pushes a tape measure past the jury to position 50 feet away from the witness to evaluate the accuracy of her vision. Then he queries Mrs. Riley about the number of fingers he's raising. Vinny asks, "Now, Mrs. Riley, and only Mrs. Riley, how many fingers am I holding up now?" As the court concludes the witness testimony, Joe Pesci improvised the line about only Mrs. Riley. The Fresh Prince of Beecham County. Will Smith was considered for the role of nervous defendant Stan Rothenstein before Mitchell Whitfield was cast in it. Whitfield was recently relocated to Los Angeles from New York, but quickly flew back to New York upon learning of the My Cousin Vinny auditions. He remembered clicking with Ralph Macchio during the part-reading process. Macchio went on to play the other person who didn't shoot the clerk. He said to Abnormal Muse, "Believe it or not, Will Smith was also up for the role." Can you imagine the movie's difference if Will Smith had been chosen for the role? The director's law degree. It makes sense that one of the best representations of the American legal system in a motion picture is My Cousin Vinny, since Jonathan Lynn was a Cambridge University graduate before becoming a successful film director. I find it extremely irritating to see movies where the legal system is flawed. Even if this is exaggerated for comedic effect, everything you see legally in this movie may happen and is roughly accurate, which makes me extremely happy, which incidentally makes it much more terrifying, Lynn said in the movie's DVD commentary. Joe Pesci made bank as Vincent Gambino. Joe Pesci was a nightclub singer before discovering that acting was his true calling. 6 years after the premiere of My Cousin Vinny, Pesci decided to combine his passion for acting and singing, and he recorded an album in character named Vincent LaGuardia Gambini Sings Just For You. Yo Cousin Vinny, Wise Guy, and Take Your Love and Shove It, a duet with Tomei in the role of Mona Lisa, are among the tracks on the album. The 1998 album cover for Vincent Guambardi Gambini Sings Just For You was released, and the song eventually became popular, making its debut on the Billboard Heat Seekers chart at number 36. Vinny's tie is always a bit off. Vinny is shown wearing a suit and tie throughout the movie, but if you look closely, you'll see that his tie is never exactly right. Following Vinny's triumphant court appearance, the DA congratulates him and provides fresh information. However, Vinny isn't wearing the same tie that he wore to the court hearing. Additionally, during Mona Lisa's testimony after the trial, the knots in Judge Trotter and Vinny's ties alternate, indicating that either they performed different takes of the scenario or the tie needed to be retied multiple times. In any case, you'll probably miss these little things in amongst all the laughter. Vinny shouldn't be practicing law in Alabama. The fact that Vinny, a native of New York, gets lost in Alabama is one of the things that makes the movie such a masterpiece. Because we're so engrossed in the movie's story of Vinny's first real case, it's simple to forget that he can only practice law in New York and not Alabama. If it had been a genuine trial, he would have needed to file a pro hoc vice and had an Alabama qualified attorney on his defense team. Austin Pendleton originally turned down the role of John Gibbons. Vinny's situation doesn't improve when one of the accused fires him and hires a public attorney after he fails to cross-examine any of the witnesses during the preliminary hearing. Austin Pendleton portrays public defense John Gibbons, who stutters badly and is incredibly uncomfortable when questioning the witness. Real-life stutterer Pendleton first declined the part, but he ultimately accepted it out of courtesy to his friend, director Jonathan Lynn. Pendleton struggled to get parts for years because he was stereotyped as a stutterer. Beecham County isn't real. Even though the movie's set in Alabama, it was filmed in Georgia. The outside sequences, which feature Vinny and Mona Lisa checking tires in front of Lucy's secondhand store, and the Jasper County Superior Court in Monticello in the background, were filmed in Monticello, Georgia. Alto, Georgia's Lee Arundel Correctional Institute, was the filming location for the entire prison sequence. Did we also mention that Beecham County, Alabama isn't a county? Additionally, Georgia was used for filming, and Monticello's Sack of Suds is still open. Real-life Jasper County Sheriff mentioned in the film. A crucial moment in establishing the young men's innocence occurs when Vinny begs Sheriff Farley to check into something for him and inexplicably takes notes on a piece of paper during the trial. However, we're still unsure about what's written down. When Sheriff Farley tells the court that Sheriff Tillman has detained 2 youths in Jasper County, Georgia, who fit the defendant's description, we learn what was written on the paper near the end of the trial. The line is meant as a thank you to Sheriff Mac Tillman, who served as the actual sheriff of Jasper County, where most of My Cousin Vinny was filmed. Lynn sat in on a murder trial. In addition to having a law degree, director Jonathan Lynn went above and beyond in his studies to ensure the movie complied with the law. He observed a murder trial in Monticello, Georgia, which inspired the courtroom scene and gave him ideas for lines he used in the movie. A few of the lines in the Vinny trial were taken straight out of that trial, Lynn stated. These lines included the opening statement made by Lane Smith, who played the district attorney, referring to Indians as hyenas and calling them our little old ancestors. The car in question appears during trial recess. To see the following element proving defendants Stan and Bill are innocent, you might need to watch the movie more than once. Avoid blinking to avoid missing it. During the trial's break, a mint green convertible with a white roof passes in the background as Vinny and Mona Lisa discuss her pictures in a restaurant. Recall that Mona Lisa stated in her evidence that the 1964 Pontiac Tempest, which was mint green, had features like those of Bill Gambini and Stan Rothenstein's 1964 Buick Skylark convertible. Two guys who match the defendant's description are shown to have been arrested in a stolen green Pontiac Tempest later in the movie. Joe Pesci and Fred Gwynne were friends. A number of the most humorous moments in the movie occurred during Judge Haller and Vinny Gambini's interactions. The judge becomes irritated with Vinny's disregard for fundamental courtroom protocol, clothes code, and carefree demeanor, leading to Vinny being frequently held in contempt. While Fred Gwynne's Judge Haller and Joe Pesci's Vinny clash in the movie, the two are close friends. At least toward the end of the trial, Vinny manages to win over the fierce judge, and he congratulates him on winning the case. Austin Pendleton had everyone laughing. Although Pendleton was on the verge of being cut from the movie, director Jonathan Lynn was sure his friend would be ideal for the character. He knew Pendleton was hilarious, but he had no idea how funny the role would make him. According to Lynn, in an interview with Abnormal Use, he had to move behind the camera to conceal his intense laughter. Mitchell Whitfield told the media source that Pendleton's portrayal made him laugh so hard that his shoulders shook as if he were crying. He called it the funniest moment I've had on any film I've ever made. I was unable to resist. Lorraine Bracco was the first choice for Mona Lisa. Marisa Tomei was fantastic as the devoted photographer, auto enthusiast, and former hairstylist Mona Lisa Vito. Although it's difficult to see someone else in the role of Mona Lisa Vito, Lorraine Bracco was the director's first choice before Tomei. The part eventually went to rookie Marisa Tomei after Bracco declined it for personal reasons after being offered it. Given that Tomei went on to win her first and only Oscar to date for the role, they made the right casting choice. Was it mentioned that it was the lone Oscar nomination for the movie? The actor who plays Judge Haller is actually from New York. Throughout the movie, Fred Gwynne's character, Alabama Judge Haller, berates Joe Pesci's character, Vinny, for being from New York. He constantly makes fun of Vinny's appearance and speech pattern, which is amusing given that Joe Pesci is from nearby New Jersey and Fred Gwynne is from New York. Gwynne's accent was so perfect that it's difficult to imagine he played the Southern Judge Haller instead of an Easterner. Bill Gambini's mom never appears in the film. In retrospect, it appears strange that Bill Gambini's mother, from Italy, chooses not to attend her son's murder trial. A studio employee noticed a plot hole during the film's production. Bill's mother is absent from the entire picture. Although director Jonathan Lynn felt she should have been included, he declined to include her as the screenplay was already lengthy enough. In the end, the filmmakers reached an agreement and included a few sequences in which his mother had a heart attack. They were ultimately eliminated since they only added more running time to the movie. A film about the death penalty. Despite being a comedy, My Cousin Vinny addresses contentious issues like the death penalty. In the movie, two young men from New York who are innocent are falsely charged with killing someone in Alabama. The film, according to filmmaker Jonathan Lynn, who opposes the death penalty, is about how simple it is for innocent individuals to be found guilty of a capital crime, particularly in cases where there's insufficient evidence. An experienced attorney does not defend them. "I'm profoundly opposed to capital punishment, and I think the film makes that statement," Lynn stated in an interview with Abnormal Views, although it makes it entertaining and in a way that isn't preaching to people. Familiar faces in My Cousin Vinny. Watching a movie is always enjoyable by seeing familiar faces. My Cousin Vinny has plenty of them. Ralph Macchio starred in The Karate Kid before landing the role of Bill Gambini. It was unexpected that the director had not viewed the movie before choosing to cast Macchio. Don't worry, director Jonathan Lynn saw the movie and said that Macchio performed a fantastic job. Fans of Friends may recognize Mitchell Whitfield's Stan Rothenstein as the other defendant on trial for the murder. Whitfield played Rachel's ex-husband, Barry, after My Cousin Vinny. My Cousin Vinny is used as a teaching tool for law students. My Cousin Vinny is not one of those movies that does well at the box office only to have experts call it out for being erroneous. The movie has received a lot of praise from attorneys for realistically depicting events, and it's even been utilized as a teaching tool in legal education. Judge Joseph Fletcher Anderson Jr. of the District of South Carolina states in 10 Things Every Trial Lawyer Could Learn from Vincent LaGuardia Gambini that the screenwriter, Launer, and director Lynn have given our profession a wonderful teaching tool while producing a gem of a movie that gives the public at large renewed faith in the adversarial system and the common law trial. Tomei's from Brooklyn, but she doesn't sound like Mona Lisa. Although Marisa Tomei was raised in the Flatbush section of Brooklyn, her accent is not at all like that of Mona Lisa Vito. "I knew the neighborhood," Tomei said in an interview with the New York Times when asked if Mona Lisa's geographical origins felt familiar. Tomei attributes her uncanny lack of accent to her mother, an English teacher, who was constantly correcting her speech and correcting it from a young age. Connections to In the Heat of the Night. Fans of the 8-season television police procedural In the Heat of the Night from 1988 to 1995 may recognize certain parallels between the series and My Cousin Vinny. Firstly, the courtroom is the same, as it appears in every courtroom scene in the series. Additionally, Jill Jane Clements, who plays the court reporter in the movie, plays a pawnbroker on the TV show. The building that serves as the Sack of Suds was once Munn's Market. And finally, the tan Ford Bronco that Vinny and Judge Trotter go hunting in is identical to the one driven by Bubba Skinner in the TV series. Visit sites from the film. Most of the film, except the courtroom scene, was shot on location, reducing costs and increasing authenticity. Director Jonathan Lynn stated in the DVD commentary, "It wasn't a costly movie, and that was the cheaper way to go. It also had more authenticity. What's even more exciting is that because so many of the scenes were filmed at actual locations throughout Georgia, film fans can visit many of the places used for filming, including the Sack of Suds convenience store, which serves as the fictional scene of the crime." Screenplay exists for a sequel. My Cousin Vinny was such a hit movie that there had to be talk of a sequel, right? Sequels can either accomplish the same goals as the original or fall short in some other way. In the case of My Cousin Vinny, screenwriter Dale Launer was quoted in a 2004 biography as having written a sequel, which Joe Pesci was interested in. Still, Marisa Tomei and the studio weren't because they felt too much time had passed since the original. If you've watched the video till here, that means you've enjoyed the video. Subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notifications bell icon